Welcome everybody, I'm Rex.
And I'm Reina.
And this is No Love, the Memoir Continues.
Hey everybody, this week's episode is going to be our pilot episode. We just wanted to give you a little bit of our background so that you would know a little bit more about us, why we're doing what we're doing, our motivations, what we hope to achieve, and such. So I hope you enjoy this first episode. Feel free to go to the website, nolovepodcast.com. Leave comments, questions. Hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome everybody, I'm Rex.
And I'm Reina.
And this is No Love, the Memoir Continues. A weekly podcast where we're going to discuss topics that were raised in my book, No Love, a Memoir, and deep dive into subjects such as child molestation, child abuse, child neglect,
Adverse childhood experiences altogether, all of them.
adult sexual trauma, teenage sexual trauma, male sexual trauma, female sexual trauma. But one of the recurring themes that we want to keep hold of is that whatever the trauma is, it can be healed. You can recover from it. It's not an easy process. It's not a fast process, which is not really popular in today's culture of instant gratification. But
it can be a beautiful process, though.
It is an absolutely beautifully horrible, torturous process that, if you stick with it, is a beautiful thing. So this week, this is our first episode. We're just gonna kind of give you a little bit of background for those of you who haven't yet read the book. If you're not one of the 20-some people who's purchased the book, then you probably don't know.
Thank you, those 20 people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I guess since I'm the one who wrote the book, I should start. This is the book. It's a little narcissistic, I know. But also here in the background, for those of you who are here in the beginning, I'm not going to talk about this again. Every so often, we're going to update these books back here with books that we're currently reading, have just finished, or have read that have inspired us. Maybe someday when we get settled in, end of the summer or something, we'll give you guys a tour of our library and all of our books. Mostly hers, but a lot of books, and it's definitely a growing collection. My name's Rex, like I said, Rex Shades Eagle. It's not the name I was born with, but I'm gonna let you purchase the book to figure that out. That's that part of the story out. Or at least I'm not gonna get into that right away. I come from a pretty messed up childhood, family life. My people that I thought were my mom and dad, I found out at 6 years old, weren't my real mom and dad. And a couple weeks after that, they ended up splitting up, and I went with my dad. My mom and dad, who I thought were my mom and dad, are actually my maternal grandparents. My biological parents gave me up when I was 4 months old due to some domestic violence issues that were going on in the home. At the hands of my biological father, whom I just found out the other day is no longer with us. He's actually been gone for almost 20 years now. So they gave me up. My maternal grandparents went down to South Carolina to get me. That's where they were. Spent the next 6 years with them. 6 years? No, 6 years.
6 years.
6 years. With my maternal grandparents, calling them mom and dad. I still call them mom and dad. If ever in our talks, in the book, whatever, you meet me someday, or you know me, if I ever say mom and dad, or mom or dad, I'm talking about my maternal grandparents. They're the only mom and dad I ever really had, or cared to have. But they split up. my dad moved in with the woman who would become my stepmom, and shortly after we moved in, she began physically abusing me. Shortly after, there was sexual abuse at the hands of my step-siblings and her. That went on for about 3 years. Then the physical abuse went on for another 3 years till I was about 12, and I fought back. When I fought back, I did a bit of damage, and my dad gave me 2 options. Or no, he didn't give me an option. He didn't give me any options. He told me his words, get the fuck out of my house, don't ever come back. And I did. There were some agreements that had to be made. I agreed that I would go if he agreed to not tell my mom that I went. Not tell anybody. As far as anybody knew, I still lived there. And I'm 48 now, just turned 48 last month. And I've never slept under the same roof as him. I've slept in his barn, I've slept in his camper, I've slept in his workshop, I've slept in his detached garage. But I've never slept in his house, and it took a long time before I was even willing to do any of those. Shortly after being kicked out, I got pretty heavy into drinking, smoking pot. Shortly after, I did cocaine. No, right before I got kicked out, I did cocaine for the first time. Shortly after I got kicked out, I did heroin for the first time. That was 1986. I was raped a year later, summer of 1987 in Philadelphia, by some transvestite prostitutes. Nothing against transvestites or prostitutes. I just wanted to give a little context. They were men. That's when the heroin got pretty bad. It really got really bad when I was about 15. Went on until I was about 18. I was in a pretty bad accident. When I was young, I spent some time in a hospital, got a settlement. Ended up going to my first Dead concert in 1992. And 3 days later, I left following the Grateful Dead. In the sun, after my accident, before my accident, I had gotten off of heroin, and because I wanted to pursue a career in sports. And that didn't happen. I ended up breaking my back and some other things. But it's okay. I ended up leaving New Jersey, following the Grateful Dead. I followed the Dead around, ended up in Vegas, left Vegas, met up with the people that I had left or went on tour with in Salt Lake, and ended up in Denver, Colorado. Spent a little bit of time in Denver. I want to give a shout out to Urban Peak in Denver. They're a rescue shelter and support center for at-risk teens and young adults, homeless teens and young adults. They're a great organization who provided me my first ever place to stay in Colorado. They were the first organization that I had ever met that didn't want anything from me. They just wanted to make sure that I was taken care of, that I was warm, that I had food and a place to stay. So God bless you for that. Thank you so much. Anyway, I ended up in Boulder. My second day in Boulder, I met the man who would become my best friend.
That's Colorado for anybody who
Oh yeah,
doesn't know.
Boulder, Colorado. Sorry about that. I forget sometimes that not everybody knows where Boulder is. Boulder is just a little bit north and just a little bit west of Denver. It's still Denver metro area. Still 303. And he was also a deadhead. We ended up just eating a probably clinically psychotic amount of LSD over the next year, which culminated in me in Oakland, California, getting spun. Spun, for anyone who doesn't know, is given a ridiculous amount of LSD. I was spun on a 1/4 gram, which is the equivalent of 2,500 hits. And I was high. I was like losing my mind. And this friend of mine, whose nickname coincidentally was Junkie Donnie, told me that heroin helped. I hadn't done heroin in years. I got off of it because it didn't help. It did help, but it didn't help. We'll get into that later. But that was December of 1995, and it helped. I did heroin, and it quieted everything down. It was like wearing psychological earmuffs. You know what I mean? It like made everything noise dampening and made it more manageable for me to be able to think and not get lost in sounds. And but all it really did was just kind of awakened, you know, like a dragon that was inside of me. And I went crazy. That was December of 1995. I didn't really stop until I was busted in September of 1996. A year and a half later, almost 2 years later. When they busted me, I weighed 143 pounds. By the way, here pretty soon, I'm going to go to Boulder. I'm just waiting to get my taxes back. As soon as I get my taxes back, I'm going to go to Boulder Sheriff's Department, and I'm going to get copies of 20 years of mugshots to upload on the website, so all you guys will be able to see. It'll be like that progression of meth thing that they show you in Dare, except it'll be the progression of heroin. From 1996, or actually 1994 was the first time I was busted in Boulder, but 1997 was when I was busted for real. I got charged with a lot, beat most of it on a technicality, ended up charged with a little, possession of less than a gram, 2 counts, well 1 count, and I got out on bond like a month later and was out for like 6 weeks and got busted again. That was the first time I went to prison. I ended up at the Colorado Department of Corrections on June 27th, 1997, and June 17th, 1997. And that was, I got out of prison for the first time, went to the halfway house, got out of the halfway house, started getting high immediately on pot and alcohol within a short amount of time. Soon, within a few months, I was doing heroin again, back homeless, back on the run. This would be my life from 1997, from September of 1996 November of 1996 until November of 2005. I was free, out of jail for a total of between 10 and 13 months. I don't really remember. I'd go in, spend a year or two, get healthy, get out, get unhealthy, go right back to using, homeless, jail. Get out, use, homeless, jail. Get out, use, homeless, jail. It's that vicious cycle that they talk about in recovery. Until I got clean the first time, I could write a book on how to get sober the wrong way. But I ended up relapsing. I married the wrong woman for the wrong reasons. And that didn't work. She ended up cheating on me. And we split. I ended up relapsing after 5 years clean. I relapsed off and on for about 1.5 years. I kept trying to get clean. I'd get clean for a few weeks, then relapse for a couple months. Get clean for a few weeks, relapse for a couple months. The last time I got clean before my last actual relapse, something happened that there'll be a whole nother episode for another time, that changed how heroin worked on me. The reason that I had done it for so long was because it worked. When I did a shot of dope, it shut the voices off in my head. It took away the memories. It took away the feelings of worthlessness, of shame, because I felt shame for what was done to me. Like, and on October 28th, 2013, in the wee hours of the morning, I fixed up 2 grams of heroin, ran a bath, and I overdosed on purpose. I woke up to some friends reviving me, much to my dismay. At the time, not now. Definitely happy for it now. But there it was. On suicide watch, I didn't have to sit in the same room, but I had to be within sight. And I sat and I thought about how horrible it was that I had failed. But I knew I didn't want to do heroin anymore. So I was on the run from probation. I turned myself in and I volunteered for a treatment program inside the jail, and I got to witness a bunch of hardcore convicts older than me, who've done more time than me for way worse crimes than me, genuinely want to change their lives, and started getting real. And here's this group of 8 to 12 men at any given time sitting in a room about the size of a bedroom in a county jail with one of 3 or 4 either young men. So we're sitting in this classroom, and there's 3 female therapists, which is funny. If you would see these women, you're like, they walk around the jail by themselves. They're like they look like Nevi. They're like our daughter Nevi's size. And this one guy who's much bigger, just sitting there and like not doing anything, not judging, not doing anything except for maybe putting on like a 10 or 15 minute video, being like, this is what we're going to talk about today, guys. And then the video would go over, it would be a Brene Brown video or something from Dr. Joe, something along those lines, something of healing or vulnerability, or someday we'll talk about the guy who had the change your narrative story.
The mystery guy.
Yeah, the mystery guy, whose video I watched too. He talked about you can't heal until you change your narrative, until you take your place out of the position of the victim and look at your story objectively. And here we all watching these videos, getting real, talking about how our parents didn't love us, or this or that, or how our brothers abused us, or our sisters beat us, and cried. I was 30 something years old, I don't even know, and 34, and I never cried. No, I was 40, sorry. Way younger, not as young as I think I am. Because it happened on right before my 39th birthday, or right before my 40th birthday. And something just changed. I knew without a doubt I was never going to do heroin again. I knew it. And I know in recovery they say never, but like I literally would rather eat a bullet than shoot dope ever again. I know where that road leads, and a bullet would just get me there quicker and not fuck around that time. That's kind of how I feel. So over the last 8 plus years, I spent 4.5 years in jail doing it in there, studying religion, studying spirituality, studying myself, meditation,
Doing your recovery.
a little bit of yoga, yes, doing my recovery in there. I didn't have the benefit of sponsorship because you don't really have closed mouth friends in prison. Some places do and some people do, but I got trust issues. I'll take credit for it.
Most addicts have trust issues.
Yeah. So, but I did the work myself, and I got out and I continued to do the work. And those of you who know me, who see this or hear this, and have been around for the past 3.5, 4 years, you know that I am a completely different man than I was then, because I knew that if I wanted a different life, I had to be a different person. I had to do different things. I had to think differently, act differently, behave differently, speak differently, talk differently. Everything had to be done differently. And now that I did that, I've come to find that not much has really changed from when the times life was good, except that now I'm not plotting and scheming and waiting for the next relapse. That was always the thing before. It was always, when's the next relapse going to be? When is the shoe going to drop and things are going to get so good that I get scared and want to ruin them or whatever. But I've always been my best self-sabotager. So over the last 3.5 years, done a lot of work, a lot of healing work. Met my queen here, my Reina, shortly after I got out in 2018, and in that time, become a life coach. Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono. It's a great word. EFT tapping, Reiki. What else are we doing? Right now we're initiates in the 9 rites of the Mune Key. And that's just me. That's just what I've done. All of the things that she's done, I'm gonna let her tell you about that. So yeah, so after, you know, spending the last few years trying to learn how to be a healer, we decided to put it into practice. But that's my backstory, some of it. You want to talk a little bit about yourself? Why you're interested in doing this with me?
Yes. So I am known as Reina. That also is not my given name. And yeah, we'll probably go into that story at some other time. You know, I'm kind of okay with the anonymity factor of it, so it's okay with me. Well, I'm here because I think everything he does is incredible and support him in it. But beyond that, my own interest is that I am an adult child of an alcoholic and dysfunctional family, and have had many. It's actually kind of a funny story. When I found out about the adverse childhood experiences test, do you remember that? And I went to take it, and we between us, well, almost to ourselves, have almost every single one on the test, but between us we have all of them. So and you know, good thing we knew. We were looking at some crazy stuff when we were coming in. So but yeah, I'm 47 years old now, and have lived a life with a lot of craziness and trauma, and only recently have come to really understand how complex that is. I always knew, like, I knew how crappy my situation was. I thought, you know, once I grow up and I'm a big person and my own person, I can make that all go away. I won't ever have to think about it again. That's not necessarily how that works. It would be nice if it was. So coming from a childhood where you're in situations, you know, where it's creating you, and you aren't necessarily wholly aware of that. And like I said, I tried to make it go away. I tried to just, you know, have a beautiful little family and a wonderful marriage, and That didn't work twice. Beautiful families, beautiful children, but just not able to really connect with my partner. And looking back, choosing people that were unavailable to connect with me, because that's what adult children tend to do. I'm probably going to reference adult children stuff a lot, and I just kind of want to do a little trigger warning and also ACA thing that, like, I'm not representing adult children's in any way. It's a 12-step program. If it's resonating with you, go Google it and look it up. For sure. And I'll always love to answer any questions I can, but also I'm fairly new at this part of things. Not new at living it, just new at attempting to navigate it in a new way. So yeah, and so a couple marriages fall apart. I have 5 incredible, beautiful children. They're probably like one of the miracles of my story is just how incredible they are and how lucky I was with all of that. There's, though, that's what happens in a dysfunctional and, addicted or alcoholic families is it continues, we didn't drink at all in the household that my children were mostly raised in. It was a sober household, no smoking pot, no drinking. I will say, we were doing our share of sugar and processed crap and caffeine, cigarettes. We were smoking cigarettes.
Addicted on illegal
yeah,
stuff.
there were lots of addictions that were okay in society. But because of my situation, and growing up in the household I didn't want to raise my children in that. I wanted to show them that people could grow up and be sober and be happy and navigate without using substances. I erred too far to that edge, but we'll talk about that some other time too. Yeah, that's a good story too.
That's a whole nother day. Whole show.
So, like I said, I tried to ignore it. I tried to pretend it away. I tried to just be healthy and be happy. And I've been saying for probably 15, maybe 20 years that I can't be, my mom's sick daughter and their healthy mother. But I had to be one or the other. All of this awareness is there, but I'm not aware of how much it's shaping what I'm doing at the time. Hindsight and all that. And then with, flirting with addiction my whole life in every shape under the sun. I mean, even reading or, I can find any way to check out, or I'm very talented at that. I can latch on to anything that's available. It doesn't necessarily have to be illegal or explicit, or I can get lost in crafting, sewing, if I want to.
Equal opportunity abuser.
Yes, I totally am, yeah. So in my mind, I'm thinking that I have control and I'm okay, and not really, almost even more out of control, because I'm willing to fuck with anything to try to find some peace. Didn't really partied young, like early adulthood, while I was traveling, following with the Grateful Dead. But in my family life, I was sober. I was clean for a good dozen years. So coming back into it later in life, partying, it was a completely different scene, and things took me much by surprise. Most of my friends were very advanced, practiced users. You know what I mean? I was not. Anyways, so of my own accord, I have twice, not because of legal ramifications or even relationship ramifications, but just because of mostly my own awarenesses and where I got to. I twice have reached out to therapy. I've been in therapy for a while, but 12-step programs. I was in NA for a while. I had been taken to Al-Anon as a young girl by my grandmother. Both my grandmother and uncle were very active in AA. So there was that, it was there. So the awareness was always there. It was available to me. I knew it was there. I hadn't looked at adult children of alcoholics, I think because originally it wasn't available in my area, and then I was so worried about my own addiction, whatever that might be, at the time, that, you know, like I said, I was in NA for marijuana use, which we'll tell that story someday too. And then most recently had looked into AA and OA, Alcoholics Anonymous and Overeaters Anonymous. And my therapist looked at me and she said, I think you need to look up adult children of alcoholics. And it was like somebody started throwing a carnival in my head. I was like, oh, everything just started to light up. So I was like, okay, this is what we're doing. And so it's all this has coincided with his book coming out, and, you know, all of our life and coming together, and so then there's this love that neither of us had anticipated, and has also been a huge catalyst for a whole nother level of healing and growth, and also turmoil.
We've been through some shit.
Yeah, and when you really start looking at that pain that you've stuffed for, you know, a few dozen years, I mean, it's painful. I'd really done a beautiful denial number on myself. So I kind of always am like, how much am I still hiding from myself? Because I'm good at that. So my interest is similar to Rex's in that we end up in the same place where we want to help the kids that were us. We want to help the kids that are our kids. We want to help the kids that we know that we've met on tour and on the street, and that we've known because of our kind of more, you know, shady,
Eclectic.
colorful associations. So yeah, I'm here because I think everybody has a valuable story. I think the most valuable part of my story is how dynamic my coming to true recovery has been. You know, when sexual abuse starts at 5 years old, and you're just kind of moving along with life, you don't really, you don't understand what's happening. You have no comprehension for what is really, what's really going on. And you're raised with this very skewed view because everyone around you that's an adult is denying what is actually happening. So that's being an adult child in a nutshell, and the multiple impacts of abuse. And I'm very interested in taking responsibility for wherever we are in our process of healing and recovery. I'm a huge advocate of radical self-love and getting seriously honest with yourself, and getting seriously honest with the people around you. You know, it's totally uncomfortable and nobody really likes it, But the truth is that we're setting each other free as we're trying to help ourselves. So that's my hope, that I support your work, that I support this work of reaching, especially females who are experiencing, this very bizarre, multi-layered kind of sexual abuse that kind of is just sprinkled on through life, and everybody tries to act like it's just fine. I really want young people to understand how sacred and beautiful and powerful they are. And I'm really interested in ways to accomplish that. We've talked about speaking, but this is where we're starting. So we really genuinely, you guys, from the bottom of our hearts, hope that we have something to contribute. Give a little bit of peace, or shed a little bit of light, or even expand the perspective a smidge, to help addicts, to help people who love addicts, to help
and to help those who are hurting, who think, because like I know you touched on some things that like I was like, yeah, like when I was literally, to my knowledge, the first homeless person in my hometown, Glassboro, New Jersey. And I didn't have a lot of friends, but the friends I had, when you grow up in a really abusive home, especially like the kind of home that I grew up in, where there's siblings and you're kind of the scapegoat, you understand that. I went from being my dad's number one to being an afterthought. Like we did, like someday we'll find the pictures, like when we unpack, we're in the process of moving right now. I'll post some pictures on the website of that time when I was a kid, and we've noticed it, that like in the pictures up before Arlene, that's my stepmom, I'm all smiles. And the pictures after, I'm not. I'm like sad, and like I have like a look on my face, like, at least at that time, like of worry, concern,
yeah, kind of
like brooding, like way too serious of a face and a mindset for a kid that's 6 to 12 years old. But I just want to say, this is episode number 1. So hopefully those who listen later on start with this episode, because I just want to say we're going to touch on some pretty sensitive topics on this show. Everything from sexual assault to suicide. We're going to talk about some pretty gritty, controversial topics, such as the rape culture that we live in. I personally want to do an entire show on the patriarchy's vilification of women. I'd like to have a female guest and a male guest on for that one to talk about that. But at the end of every show, we don't want to trigger anybody. We don't want anybody to walk away from listening to our show feeling like they need to get high, or they want to hurt themselves, or anything that's negative. We want you guys to be walking away from our show feeling like, wow, man, if these guys are talking about this, then maybe I can talk about it too. Maybe I can be open about what's going on with me, or what has went on with me, or with someone that you know, or a family member, or...
The truth is, you won't heal until you find a way to be vulnerable. A safe way for you to be vulnerable. You have to find a way to truly create that for yourself, whether it's journaling, or meetings, or
reaching out,
therapy,
yep,
or all of the above.
Or all of the above.
Probably.
Because I know for myself, to get to where I am today, 8.5 years ago, I was a homeless heroin addict, on the run from the law, about to take my own life. Because not because I was anything other than tired. I saw no way out. I didn't think I would ever stop using. And now, not even 8.5 years later, 8 years and 5 months later, I am with my dream woman, I have 5 amazing stepkids, 2 beautiful grandkids, 3 dogs. We own almost 20 acres in southern Colorado in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Yeah, your best life is waiting for you. If someone would have told me that 8.5 years ago, I would have laughed in their face and told them they were full of shit. But as I said, we don't want to trigger anyone. So at the end of every show, if something that you've heard on this show or something that's going on in your life that we talked about was triggering, please look in the show notes. There's contact information for anyone you can think of. AA, NA, adult children, suicide hotline, sexual assault hotline, Overeaters Anonymous. We've got it all in there. And if we don't have it, leave us a comment and tell us to add it. If we've triggered or haven't touched on a topic that is important to you or that you care about, go to the website, nolovepodcast.com. Leave us a comment. We definitely, even anything at all. We want to hear anything at all. We hope that you keep it nice, but we even welcome discourse and dissenting comments. If we talk about something that you don't necessarily agree with, start a conversation. Maybe we'll have you on if you can argue your point enough.
Well, yeah, I would like to think that I'm a pretty open-minded person, and if you have good reasons for a different point of view, I want to hear it. I want to hear it even if I don't agree with it.
Absolutely.
We talk about this all the time. Yep. We have some pretty stiff views on things, but we aren't the kind of people who then use that as a way to
shut down everyone else.
Yeah, or limit who we accept as valid and worthy to share with. Like everyone has just as much cred as us. We feel like.
And if you don't believe as we do, that's fine. In the words of Morpheus, our beliefs do not require you to believe as we do.
Yeah.
So,
we just we would prefer you keep it loving. That would be our request. We always want to present what we're doing lovingly. So hopefully if we all stay loving, then even all this pretty intense stuff we can get into, we'll get through it. We'll find beautiful things to share with each other about it.
Yep. And then a final thing, I'll talk about this more. I just wanted to touch on why the book and the podcast are No Love. My best friend came to see me in county jail after my failed suicide attempt, after I turned myself in. And we were talking on the phone through the glass, and he started crying. And he said, "Bro, when are you going to stop gypping me out of your life?" That was a turning point for me. That is when I realized that no matter what I did to myself, this man was not going to stop loving me. That there was nothing that I could do that was going to chase him away, no matter how hard I tried. So it inspired me to know what love really is. And I went on a religious mission. I wanted to understand the mystics and the prophets and the writers of the books, the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas. I wanted to know it all. And the one thing that they all have in common is that they all say, or they all imply, that to know God is to know love. And to know love is to know unconditional, selfless love is to be as close to the divine as we can be. So that's my goal, is to know love. And like she said, to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, because we didn't. Nobody spoke up for us. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Hope to see you again.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Hi. Thanks for listening to the show today. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to reach out to us at our website, nolovepodcast.com, or follow any of the links in the show notes. You're not alone. You don't have to face anything alone. There is help.